Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric and Chad here with Iraq Veteran 8888. Today we're going to do a top 10 video. We're going to talk about some deer hunting tips. We're getting here on deer season. I know a lot of folks are going to be getting into the woods and trying to take a shot at Bambi, and we're wanting to try to pass along a little bit of information and knowledge that we've gathered over the years. We're by no means experts on deer hunting, but we have shot quite a few deer over the years, and we'd like to pass along some tips that we feel will be helpful to some of you as you're starting to get out into the deer woods a bit.
The deer woods.
The deer woods.
The deer woods.
So we're going to go down the list. This is a top 10, so we've got a few we're going to elaborate on. Guys, this doesn't cover all of them. There's tons of little things that you can do. You could consider some of these hacks. You can consider some of them just general tips. But guys, none of these are meant to substitute all of the basics. I mean, guys, wear an orange and unload the gun when you cross a fence, and don't try to climb a deer stand with a loaded gun. I mean, stuff like that, that's the basics, but we're going a little bit further than that.
Well, one of my favorite resources for learning the basics, like when I was young and he was still alive, was Jim Varney. Buckmasters, the whole Bubba series.
Yeah.
It's silliest thing. It's all satire, basically, but there's a lot of seriousness in there. If anybody doesn't know about hunting, want to get a good laugh and learn at the same time, the Bubba series is awesome.
Yeah, check out Jim Varney. That's
I really
awesome.
do. I really do miss that man.
Well, that's Ernest, right?
That's Ernest. Yeah.
Ernest P. Worrell. All right. Anyway, without further ado, we're going to go down the list here. So these are in no particular order, but we're going to go on down here. All right. So number one is don't go crazy on gear to get started. What do people do wrong there?
Well, they see all the advertisements in Buckmasters or whatever hunting magazine they're looking at, like, man, I got to go get me all that stuff, and they wind up with like an 80-pound pack to go hunting.
Yeah,
it's like you're not exactly trekking elk through some national forest out west or anything like that for days on end and need all that. You're going like 15 miles down the road maybe, and you're going to walk in the woods about 100 yards, and you're going to sit in a tree stand for a few hours.
Yeah.
You don't need all that gear.
I think the big thing about not going crazy on gear, the reason I wrote that bullet point down, is because a lot of people think they got to go and buy like a really fancy, expensive rifle, and they got to buy all the Drake gear and all the fancy name brand camo, and they got to keep up with all their buddies at the hunting camp and having all the fancy new camo with the scent block and all this mess. Guys, don't think that you have to get all of that to get started deer hunting. Okay, put on some warm clothes. And control your scent and get out there, and you can hunt with any type of rifle that is of a good quality and of a reasonable caliber in terms of stopping power and everything like that. And as long as it's a safe gun to use, you're good. You don't have to spend a ton of money to get started deer hunting. So that's I think a very important point.
Yeah, I mean, like literally, you can go as far as camo goes. If you just want to get up in the woods and go hunt and try it, go to the Army Navy store and just pick you up an old set of BDUs or something along those lines. I mean, they work fine.
A $5 BDU top.
Yeah, I mean, the colors are just fine. Or even some people, if they hunt like a little like half blind or something like that, you can literally wear blue jeans up there and just literally get a BDU top and then cover your face and wear a hat. You're good. You're golden.
You got
no
it.
big deal.
All right, number two, learn how to scout your area and don't walk through bedding areas. So this is getting a little bit more into the strategy of pursuing deer. Things that you should and shouldn't do. This is not really a gear-related thing, but, I mean, let's face it, there's a difference between, well, we're going to cover this bullet point later, but there's a difference between harvesting and hunting. And when you're engaged in the activity of hunting, especially if you are managing a given piece of property, like say you own a few hundred acres or you lease 1,000 acres, you are managing that property. And part of knowing the strategy for going for the deer in your area is to scout the area, look for sheds. Look for rubbings on trees. Look for rubbings in the ground where they're rooting around for stuff on the ground. Look for tracks. Try to establish those patterns. And then also, once you find like where the bedding areas on the property are, where their preferred modes of travel, like which direction they're coming in to like get water on the property, where they're going to eat, what times of the day, all of those patterns are established. Don't walk through their bedding areas. A lot of people make the mistake of, I think deer are bedding down here, and they want to go and look through it. Stay away from the bedding areas because that is where those animals feel secure on your property. And the last thing you want to do is remove the element of security from the situation. You want them to feel secure on your property because if your property is holding big deer, they're going to stay on your property because they have no reason to leave. If they have shelter, food, water, security, you're good. You want to make sure they keep that security.
Something too on property that might have livestock. You got cows or goats or anything like that. You'll have a lot of like cow paths. Like basically just livestock paths that lead down to water and lead around to different feeding areas, things like that, different parts of the pasture and all that. I know it's tempting. Don't walk those to go to your stand and stuff, okay? Because the deer and other game animals, they travel them too, and you don't want to leave your scent on those paths and everything like that. Now, having an area that you travel through just through the woods or something like that where you can observe those trails, that's fine. But you don't want to walk those trails as easy as it is to do. I mean, that's just something that we've always done where we hunt. Yeah. We just never walk the cow trails.
I try to stay about 30 or 40 feet adjacent to the trails. It's okay to know where they're at and kind of follow them, but just don't walk in them.
Yep, for sure.
All right, and play the wind game. All right, this is number 3. Play the wind. And guys, I know that's really like overstated in a lot of circles when it comes to hunting, but know the direction that the wind is blowing that day that you're going to hunt, and know the direction that you need to get into your stand. If you're going to make a stand, get into your deer stand, and you got the wind to your back and everything like that, it doesn't matter how sneaky you are. If the deer are bedded downwind from you, they're going to catch some scent, and they're probably going to call bullcrap on you. So the thing is, play your days right.
Yep.
Read the wind, know what the wind's doing, and as long as the wind's in your favor, then hunt on the days where the wind's in your favor.
For sure. Something too, the guys that hunt with like climbing stands, they've got a definite advantage because before season starts, they can go and scout different areas around their hunting lease or wherever, and they can find trees to get into in different locations in order to play the wind game.
Right.
So if the wind's blowing west to east this day or north to south or whatever, they're going to go here. If it's blowing the opposite direction, they're going to go over here on this side. And they find, that's the whole thing with scouting, is you find the areas where the deer are traveling through and things like that, and that gives you a really good option. But guys with lighter stands, you find those areas like that, but you set up semi-permanent structures basically, and they're already there. All you have to do is take yourself in the woods, but you have to pick and choose your battles.
That's right.
For sure. So definitely.
There are definite advantages to climbing stands versus a fixed stand.
Yep.
And the wind has a lot to do with that too. All right, so number 4 is understanding the limitations of your skills. All right, this can be mental, physical, a lot of different limitations, but probably the most common limitation that people fail to adhere to is like limitations in shooting skills. I mean, some people will take shots they know they shouldn't make, or they might take a shot through like heavy brush or something like that they probably shouldn't take. So you owe it as a hunter to your game to give it a clean death, to provide a humane kill to that animal. And that also comes down to your skill. If a deer is 300 or 400 yards away, well, guess what? If you're familiar with shooting that type of distance and you have your load and everything doped out just right, and you know that your bullet will deliver the goods at that distance, then by all means take the shot. But if you've got a Sears and Roebuck 3-9 scope on a little 30-30
with a duplex reticle.
With a duplex reticle, the 0 for 50 yards, you probably don't need to take that shot. So understanding your limitations. If you can make the shot, but don't take the shot unless you know you can make it.
Too, that would kind of coincide with having the right gear for the right hunting situation. I mean, where we hunt, most of the time, we're not going to take a shot over 80 to 100 yards max.
Right.
Okay, because we're down in the woods, by creek beds, things like that, and the longest that you can see is 80 yards. And a 30-30 or something along those lines is perfect for that, even an iron-sighted gun.
Sure.
I mean, the first gun I ever, hunted with was a little Sporterized Enfield right here with iron sights on it, no big deal. And
right.
But if you're going to take a 300 or 400 yard shot, you might want to consider like a short action Magnum caliber or something like that for those longer range shots if that's mostly what you're doing. So definitely caliber considerations and rifle considerations, gear, things like that.
Well, that brings us to bullet point number 5, which is choose the correct bullet and gun combo.
Indeed.
He kind of more or less covered that, but choose the correct tool for the job. A hunting rifle, when outfitted as a hunting rifle, is basically just a tool. It is a tool that kills deer, and knowing your limitations for where you're hunting, you don't need to take a 1,000-yard bench rest rifle out to try to hunt deer at 100 yards.
I'm gonna take my 6mm rail gun out that weighs 30 pounds. I'm gonna set that sucker up.
I can't tell you how many people I've run into, and especially working at Moss and everything like that, they bring some 300 Weatherby Magnum or 300 Winchester Magnum rifle in there, and they want us to mount a scope on it, and the scope is like some 4 to 16 or some crap like that. Like the lowest magnification setting on the optics, like 4 power.
No. I've seen worse than that.
And they want to go hunt 100 yards.
Oh, no. 4 power is nothing. You 4 to 12 is all right. But I mean, I see guys that have 8 power minimum variable power optics come in there like, yeah, this is my hunting rifle. Like,
where are you hunting?
What? 8 to 24, 8 to 32.
Now look, if you're taking long shots or you're hunting game that requires you to be able to take those shots, then absolutely. But that's what we're saying.
In Georgia,
is understanding the correct combo of caliber to gun. You know, like this little this rifle right here. This is one of the little Kimber 84Ms. It's an intermediate action 308. It's nice and lightweight. It's got just a simple little Leupold 2-7 on it, which is just a great optic that you can dial down really low power for nice medium to long short range shots. I can dial it up to 7. And and this gun is perfect for a couple of 100 yards. You know what I mean? And this is my wife's deer gun. It's nice and lightweight.
The big benefit to a low power, variable power optic is you take it down to 2 or 3 power and you can scan wide areas. And when you find a target of opportunity, you can dial it in to get a closer look, count antlers, count points or whatever, verify whether it's a doe or a spike, and you can, dial it up and you can see the things that you need to see before you take that accurate shot.
Yeah, so choosing the correct bullet and gun combo also comes down to being able to properly identify your potential quarry, which is very important. If you're maxed out on buck tags, the last thing you want to do is accidentally kill a spike, and guess what? You just technically broke the law because you harvested a spike. All right.
Yep.
So that's something to consider. And then obviously caliber choice is kind of rolled into that too. There's a whole debate over caliber choice, but guys, use a centerfire caliber of at least 25 caliber or better. I've killed a lot of deer with 22 caliber guns, not long rifle, but like 223 caliber bolt actions. I've killed a lot of deer with them with neck shots and things like that. But really, something like a 35 Remington or 30-30, 32 special, something like that. I mean, 270s, alt-6s. I mean, guys, you use a deer caliber. Don't skimp on the caliber. Choose a good deer hunting caliber.
Not only that, but like Eric said, bullet selection. Use a good quality hollow point, soft point, some sort of expanding round that's going to double or more its caliber, its original caliber, so you get a good knockdown power and everything, good transfer of energy. Don't use cheap FMJ ammo, although it would likely do the job just fine.
Don't hunt deer with full metal jacket.
It's not
ammo,
really
guys.
Designed for that. So
it's not.
Anyways.
All right, so moving on to number 6, trail cameras are your friend. Now, I know earlier we said don't go crazy to get started. Trail cameras are one of those things that after you've established some patterns, you've done some scouting, say you've planted some food plots, which that's a whole nother video to talk about food plots, but we're not going to get into that now. But say that you've gotten to a point where the land you're hunting on, you've managed it to the point where you have an idea of where you think these deer are going to show up to feed, or maybe they're showing up to travel through a given path to get from a bedding area to a feeding area, and you want to monitor that activity. Trail cameras are an indispensable tool for monitoring the activity of the deer on your property in a very nonchalant and very hands-off way. Some trail cameras actually will send pictures to your phone, so it allows you to monitor the situation that's going on with your deer herd without actually having to go into the woods and disturb the area to retrieve cards and stuff. So the prices on trail cameras go all the way down to like $60 trail cameras,
or less,
all the way up to they can cost I think like $1,000 for like some of the top dogs, depending on what you get. So don't be afraid to use trail cameras. Before you deploy them and before you spend money on them, make sure you have an idea of where the animals are traveling on the property. There's nothing worse than spending money on gear and you put a camera out and you feel like you're about to see these crazy pictures like you see online, these 14-point deer and all this.
You see some raccoons.
And you see some dang raccoons.
Humping.
Yeah, exactly.
Or some crows.
Exactly. So
dang it.
Understand the limitations of trail cameras and understand when you need to deploy them, but understand that they are a very valuable tool. And trail cameras, if you're a landowner, all right, this is on the other end of the spectrum. If you're a landowner and you're worried about people's trespassing on your property, trail cameras can also lead to prosecution for trespassers, thieves. People have been caught stealing with trail cameras. People have been prosecuted with evidence from trail cameras. So they are useful for things other than just hunting.
And two, if you've got trail camera set up, it basically eliminates speculation. As far as the deer that are out there and everything, the size of them and all that. If you see rubbings and stuff on trees, it might be a crazy rubbing, but it might be a little 4-point buck that is just going nuts.
Sure.
But whatever. I mean, it gives you the ability to know exactly what's out there on the property.
It's just one more tool in the tool bag,
Exactly.
and all we're saying is just understand that they're useful. All right, so getting on to number 7. Control scent, no cologne or deodorant. Now, guys, all these experts, when it comes to scent and everything like that, will tell you, oh, you got to buy this scent lock, fancy pants, clothing that won't let your scent out. You got to use this special deodorant that we make, and you got to make you got to use this special shampoo and all this. Guys, you don't have to get that crazy, but the basic understanding and what you need to kind of keep in your mind is that deer use their noses a lot to detect many things, but threats, I mean, we are a threat to them, and they are completely repulsed by our scent. They hate it. We stink. We smell like rotten garbage to them. They hate it. So the thing is, understand that if you're not playing the wind and you're careless with where the wind's blowing, doesn't matter what you smell like, they're going to smell you. So all the scent control in the world and all the deodorant and all the throwing dirt in your bag and wiping doe pee on your shoes and all that, all of that is completely useless if you don't play the wind. So just understand that, yes, scent is something to consider, but don't make that big of a deal about it if you're being really cautious with the wind.
One thing that I do, just as a tip, I have kids, so I use Drift all the time. It's basically an unscented detergent, and it literally leaves nothing on the clothes, so there's no residue or anything like that. It's very minimal ingredients. You can buy antiperspirant if you don't want to sweat that doesn't have any scent to it at Walmart, so you can get things that will lead to containing your scent very easily.
And they're generic.
And they're cheap, and they're when I was hunting with Dad when I was a kid, we used Red Fox pee on our boots all the time. And that stuff stays with your boots too.
Yep.
And I just remember that smell. You put it on, I was like,
Yep.
Some people think it stinks, but I love it. It reminds me of, ooh yeah,
all
nostalgia.
Right. So we're getting on to scents. All right.
Scent.
So he's talking about these scents. So know which scent attractants work and when to use them. Okay. So that's a big thing. Like having some stuff in your tool bag. Like, all right, if you want to mess with some like doe and estrus scent, or you want to mess around with some buck scents.
You gotta make sure the timing's right.
You have to make sure that timing is correct. I mean, if you're trying to bring in a big buck
on day one of season
using scents, all right, well then a doe in heat is not really going to make sense to him because the doe aren't in heat yet. So
he's gonna be like, man, what the heck's going on with that crazy doe?
If the doe aren't in the rut yet, if the rut's not on, then trying to play that card isn't really going to work. And a smart deer that's a little older, and especially if he's been around long enough, could potentially, call bullcrap on you and just...
Now, some young buck might be running out there. He's like, woo, I got me a babe now.
Yeah.
Come on.
It just depends. So understand the bag of tricks and understand when to use them.
Yep.
It's okay to have... I mean, a bottle of scent doesn't cost that much money. So if you want to invest in a few cents to play around with, that's fine. One thing that I can also elaborate on with scents, the best way to distribute scent is to use the wind and allow the wind to carry the scent. And the best way to do that is to take a little bit of fishing string and a cotton ball and saturate the cotton ball with the scent and hang the cotton ball high up in a tree. Not too high, but hang it up about where their noses are, level with where their heads are. Hang it up, and that scent will really help distribute out really well versus just pouring it on the ground. Well, their heads aren't always near the ground. Yeah, the scent will kind of waft away, but I've found that it works better to have that scent ball up in the air a little bit where it can really get out there a bit.
That's a trick that we used to use all the time too. And another reason for the height of it is if you're up in a tree stand, you're 10, 12, maybe higher feet above that scent ball. So your smell is going to carry above that, while the scent that you're distributing carries below that. So the deer aren't going to know that you're up there. It's going to mask your smell a little bit too if you do have some scent coming out. So.
That's right.
But anyways.
So moving on to the next one, you're going to put your stands up way before season, and if you're a climber, you're going to practice off season. Mm-hmm. So, if you're running climbing stand, you don't go into the stand the first day of deer season and trying to climb a tree and saw limbs off and do all this, and you're making all this racket. That's not the time to be scouting. You need to scout during the summer and kind of figure out, one, you're establishing the patterns, mm-hmm. and you also need to go, all right, well, this is a tree that I'm going to get in. Mm-hmm. So that's when you practice off season. You get up there, you saw the limbs out of the way, you make sure everything's good. Mm-hmm. You get in it, you look around, you go, all right, yeah, this is where I'm going to set up. Mm-hmm. You can maybe take a little bit of like orange fluorescent paint, mm-hmm. or even just a little white bit of spray paint, and just at the trunk of the tree, just spray paint a line, a white line or orange line on the bottom of the tree. And that way, when you're getting in that stand or trying to find your tree early in the morning and the light's real limited, that little bit of white streak right there will help you identify the trees that you've chosen.
For sure.
That'll help you find the tree without having to minimize the amount of time that you're spending stinking the place up, okay? So that's something to consider.
Or making all kinds of crazy rackets.
And then obviously, you're not going to put a climbing, not the climbing stands, but the ladder stand. You're not going to install a ladder stand the day before deer season starts, okay? Give it at least a month or two. I mean, get out there a couple of months, scout your spot, mm-hmm. which you should be planting your food plots anyway, and figuring out kind of where your plots are going to go, mm-hmm. and everything like that. Put your ladder stand up, get it situated where you want, and let it mellow. Mm-hmm. If you want to camouflage it. If you want to put burlap or whatever other random stuff on it, you do your thing there.
A lot of times.
But put it up ahead of time.
A lot of times that stuff doesn't matter. Once the deer get used to it, they're going to get used to it. Yep. I mean, it's not...
You could probably paint it orange and they wouldn't care. All right.
Nope, not going to care.
Let's see. Another tip. Some places have laws against baiting. Mm-hmm. Understand your local laws. Some folks get in trouble over baiting. Some people have kind of a greater than thou attitude when it comes to whether or not you should bait for deer. And the way that I'll elaborate on baiting is the nutrition of a strong, healthy buck starts in the womb of the mother. Mm-hmm. And if that mother has all the food that she needs, that buck in her womb is going to grow up to be good and healthy. And as long as genetics are in place, mm-hmm. and that buck has good genetics, it's going to grow up to be the healthiest buck that it possibly can. So nutrition for a deer is not just, all right, I'm going to throw out a bunch of deer corn and all the deer are going to come and eat here. Baiting, okay, sure. If that's the way you hunt, fine. But if you truly want to manage your deer herd and make sure that they have the nutrition that they need, that also comes with planting food plots in the spring as well as the winter. Because in the off season, the deer need food too. They need to be... not have as much stress put on them. They have the food they need. So yeah, when that mother is eating, she's got all the food that her and her fawns need, spring all the way through the summer, and then going all the way into the winter. So if you're truly managing the deer herd on your property, you're assuring that they have the food that they need year round, mm-hmm. and understand that it's not just bait. A food plot is more than just baiting the deer. It's feeding the deer so that they can be healthy.
Well, not only that, so they stay in that area too. You want to keep the deer there, so you entice them to stay by planting food plots, having feeders out. Like where we are, we're kind of barely in the northern zone in Georgia. So, northern zone you can't bait for deer, but southern zone you can. Like literally right across the county line you can bait, but not here.
Right.
So there's rules for, having feeders and things like that a certain distance away from your tree stand or where you're hunting from, whatever the case is. It's got to be out of sight and all this rigmarole. But on the off season, that stuff is perfectly fine to have out there as long as it's done in a responsible manner.
You can even, in some certain areas, now understand your local laws and things like that, but in certain areas you can even bait all the way up until deer season, like 10 days prior. Mm-hmm. You can bait, and it's perfectly fine. So it just depends on the laws. So understand your rules and regulations where you live when it comes to hunting. Mm-hmm. And I guess I'll end that particular bullet point by saying that every hunter should strive to be a lawful hunter who tries to do his best to follow the rules of the land and the laws of the land, and to try to be a responsible hunter, because it makes us all look better. when everybody does the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
Yep.
You know, chances are you're out there in the woods, nobody's watching, and they may not see you do that wrong thing that you're not supposed to be doing. But you owe it to yourself and all the other hunters to always strive to do the right thing. All right.
Indeed.
Last thing, there's a difference between hunting and harvesting.
Indeed.
We mentioned that a little bit earlier, but you know, this is kind of a touchy subject because we're talking like, you know, you watch these, I don't know, hunting shows where people go out and it's like, oh wow, you know, there's the babe with the bow and the pretty blonde hair and she's whacking a 14-point buck, and it's like every time you tune into the show, they're whacking these, you know, huge deer, and and it creates this almost kind of like, holy mackerel, I need to get out and hunt some deer because everywhere I go, I'm going to hunt deer and kill them like that. You have to understand, a lot of those shows and a lot of these publications and things have a very overglorified and very almost fantasy-like view of how hunting really happens. A lot of those places are high fence.
Some of it's just sensationalized.
It's sensationalized a bit. So I guess the understanding is what makes you a hunter is not your ability to go pay some guy $4,000 to go kill a 14-point buck on his property, where he's going to put you in a stand and then 10 minutes later a trophy deer is going to walk out because he just spent 5 years growing that deer, and that's why you're paying all that money.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong, guys. Sometimes you don't have a place to hunt, and believe me, I've done it. I've gone to a place where I've paid to hunt hogs or hunt deer because sometimes hunting lands are hard to get in on, and I'm not responsible for the management of that property. Like, I don't get to go in and scout and do the things that a hunter does. But the point we want to make with this bullet point is that being a hunter, you have to understand your game. You have to understand the wheres and whys and hows of what your game is doing, why they're coming, how they're coming, what they're doing. All of those things are important, and that's what makes you a hunter, is understanding your game.
I like the European thinking of hunting. There's a guy that I follow on Instagram. His name is Haig Bonke, and he's always posting pictures of going out and hunting like moose or, you know, deer species, whatever, and things like that. And he's always like camping. They have like a little lodge, like a little hunting camp and everything like that. They'll be out there for a week. It'll be raining or whatever. He'll still be out there hanging out and stuff and like scouting these animals and following around and looking for signs. You know, that's like real hunting.
Yeah.
You know, but the high fence stuff, I mean, sure, it's harvesting. You know, there is a difference, you know, and it's a touchy subject, like Eric said. I mean, if you just go out and you pay to harvest a deer, well, that's awesome. You got a world record deer, whatever the case is. Very cool. But, you know, the guy who's been growing deer on his land for, you know, 5, 6, 7 years, or whatever the case is, and then harvesting them off his land, you know, and scouting them around and knowing them, he's
the hunter.
You know,
trust me.
Really. I mean, there is a difference, but
There is.
I do like the European style of hunting a little bit better than what, you know, things have become here in Georgia, or not Georgia, but in the States here. You know, the whole sensationalized hunting shows and all that kind of stuff, just kind of giving kind of a false air about things, you know, and I don't know. It's just
that's how it goes.
So
all right, so we have 5 bullet points. We're going to go over them really quick. We're going to end this video.
Poking fun.
We're going to poke some fun here, and these are just some silly bullet points we came up with, and we're going to go over them real quick. And we are getting towards the end of the video here. All right, so poking fun, guys. Don't drink. Save it for later. That's obvious. Don't drink when you're hunting. Okay, that's not smart. It makes us all look bad.
Just
okay. Kidding. Don't take a woman hunting
unless you want to be outdone. Look, I'm going to tell you right now, you take your wife and you point it at a ladder stand and you say, sit in that stand with a rifle, here's a book, and sit there until a deer comes by and then shoot it. She'll do it. She'll sit there and read that entire book. Women are patient. They will get in that stand and they will find that deer. They'll sit there all day, whereby, you know, comes 11 o'clock, we're like, all right, okay. On the other end,
you know, we get impatient, but women are patient, guys. They'll outshoot you.
On the other end of that spectrum, some kids are mature enough to take hunting. Others, no.
Yeah.
You get up in the stand, you sit there for half an hour, like, I'm bored. It's like, shut up.
Yep. So you got to keep that in mind.
Pick your battles.
Guys, shoot more than once a year. Some people, I can't tell you how many times I've seen people like that you know, they're not really gun people. They just understand that guns are a part of deer hunting, so they own a deer rifle, and they shoot once a year. They go out and they, you know, stick a pie plate up and shoot 3 rounds. All right, we're good. And it's like they don't actually take the time to actually learn how to shoot.
That's my dad.
To really shoot, you know, and shoot more than once a year, guys. If this rifle is your tool, be good with it. Learn how to use it. It's a tool, and learn how to use your tools properly. Guys, learn how to shoot. Not all hunting rifles are FUD guns. All right, this is a big one. This is a gripe right here because, in case you don't know, a FUD is a person who thinks that only hunting rifles and things like that should be legal, and that all of the auto-loading ARs and AKs and all of those things have no place in the gun owner's arsenal, and that nobody should own those types of guns. So
they're
basically,
not sporting.
Yeah, leave my sporting guns alone, but screw you and your auto-loaders. Guys, ARs are awesome hunting rifles. Yes, you can use auto-loading rifles for hunting. It doesn't have to be an old bolt-action rifle to be able to take a deer. No, it doesn't mean you're not good at hunting because you own an AR and you want to hunt deer with 300 blackout. It's just another tool in the bag, guys. Look, don't let those people give you a hard time, okay? There's room at the table for everybody. Just because you want to hunt with an AR-15 doesn't make you lesser of a hunter, or it doesn't make you not a man because you don't use a bolt-action rifle. Guys, just, take it with a grain of salt.
The thing is, ARs are extremely versatile, and over the years, there's been a lot of companies that have come out with like camo-dipped guns and things like that that are basically tailored more for hunting applications, but the AR platform is very versatile. I mean, the swap of an upper with an optic on there, you've already got zeroed for a harder hitting caliber than 5.56. For hunting, literally drop it on, go out to the woods, put your other upper back on when you get home, there's your home defense rifle. You can't do that with a bolt gun.
Versatility.
Okay. Very versatile. Anyways.
So the last bullet point, don't buy into the hype.
Oh, the hype.
The hype.
What hype?
Don't buy into the hype.
What are you talking about?
And what I mean by that is, don't let all of these TV shows and magazines and all of these things discourage you from getting out of the woods and hunting. Don't let the Drake ads and all these ads for these fancy hunting clothes and all this stuff. If you can't afford to buy a $350 jacket in the coolest camo pattern, guess what? That deer is not there for fashion. That deer doesn't care what brand your clothes are. All that deer wants to do is live and survive. And to some of these people that buy all this fancy gear, deer hunting might be a game to them, but it's not a game to that animal. It's life and death to that animal. And, all these folks that they have this hipster mentality about hunting, that you have to buy all the latest and greatest, and you got to do what all the pros are doing on the hunting shows and all that. Guys, don't buy into the hype. Buy what you can afford. Keep it simple. Don't spend a ton of money, and get out there and be a hunter. Get out there and scout. Get out there and just be a good hunter.
I think that some of the magazines and the TV shows and all the advertisements out there, it's like they want to make you feel like you can buy your skills. If you buy this or you buy that or you use this product or whatever, you're going to be a better hunter. But that's not really the case. I mean, the only thing that makes you a better hunter is actually getting out there and learning and hunting. And the best thing I can recommend for that is go, if you're a kid or something like that, go with your dad who hunts or your grandfather who hunts or a family member who hunts all the time and learn. Keep it simple and don't take all kinds of crap that you don't need, going back to one of the earlier points, and just go out there and learn. That's really the basis for a good hunting knowledge. It's just learning.
Old school is cool school.
Old school is cool school.
That's the way to look at it. Always take advice from the guys that have been doing it a long time. And, take what we said with a grain of salt, guys, but there's our video. Hopefully you guys learned something. Maybe we invoked a little bit of thought, something you weren't thinking about. Maybe some of you are doing some of these things, and maybe now you'll be a little bit better of a hunter as a result. Again, guys, we're not experts, but we thought we'd make this video because we are right here on deer season. And is there anything that you would add to this video? Go down in the comment section below. Add any kind of comments you think will be beneficial to the discussion. Guys, be safe. Get out there. Have a good time. Enjoy the sport.
We're still learning, so any tips that you have for us, we could definitely use.
Is there something we missed? Let us know. Guys, thank you so much for watching today's video. I know it was a little bit long, but I think the points hopefully were well received. Have yourselves a good day, and we'll see you in the woods.
Happy hunting.